Dijonai Carrington poked the wrong person, literally and metaphorically. 1 minute, she's going viral for jabbing Caitlin Clark in the eye. The next, she's packing her bags for Minnesota. Call it karma. Call it coincidence. Call it actions have consequences. But whatever you call it, one thing is undeniable. DJ Carrington's exit from the Dallas Wings is dripping with irony, drama, and the kind of poetic justice that would make Shakespeare slow clap. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. It all started with that moment. If you follow WNBA drama like it's your favorite soap opera, and let's be real, who doesn't these days? You already know the scene. A nationally televised game. All eyes on Caitlin Clark, the league's shining new superstar. And then, bam, out of nowhere, Carrington's hand flies up and makes direct contact with Clark's eye. Was it intentional? Was it just a basketball play? Debate raged. But what wasn't up for debate was the fallout. That one move transformed DJ from a promising talent into public enemy #1 overnight. The internet exploded. Fans were outraged. Commentators jumped in. Social media detectives slowed the clip down frame by frame, like it was a Zapruder film. And when Carrington responded, not with remorse, but with dismissive comments and a very ill-timed social media flex, the firestorm only grew. Instead of damage control, she delivered gasoline. She leaned into the villain role, cracking jokes, downplaying the backlash, and even throwing some not-so-subtle shade at Clark and her fans. Bold move, especially when you're not putting up all-star numbers. And therein lies the problem. Because if you're going to play the villain, you better dominate. Think Dennis Rodman levels of chaos with a side of rebounds. Think Draymond Green energy, controversial but crucial. But Carrington? She wasn't carrying Dallas. Her stats weren't saving games. Her presence wasn't making headlines for winning. It was making headlines for antics. And when the drama becomes bigger than the game, that's when front offices start asking tough questions. So, the Dallas Wings did what teams often do when the PR risk outweighs the on-court reward. They cut bait. Except in this case, they didn't release her outright. They traded her. And not just anywhere. They sent her to the Minnesota Lynx, a team known for discipline, culture, and playing the long game. Translation? This isn't a victory lap. It's a reset button. She's going from potential centerpiece to bench depth, from max contract energy to prove yourself vibes. To be clear, this wasn't just about the eye poke. That was a catalyst. Sure. But it was everything that came after. The interviews, the online attitude, the refusal to read the room. Dallas had high hopes for Carrington. She had the skill set, the physicality, the energy. But instead of being the glue player they needed, she became the headline risk they couldn't afford. And the timing? Oh, it's perfect. The trade dropped right in the middle of the eye poke, controversies still trending. Right while fans were posting side-by-side comparisons of Clark's sportsmanship and Carrington's snark. It's like the league wanted to remind everyone. This is what happens when the drama outweighs the value. Let's talk about the optics here, because they matter in a league as tight-knit and reputation-driven as the WNBA. This isn't the NBA with its 30 teams and deep rotations. The W is a smaller pond, and reputations travel fast. Once a player gets labeled, whether it's as a locker room problem, a drama magnet, or just someone who can't take the heat, it sticks. And when the off-court mess starts following you from arena to arena, it doesn't matter how many hours you put in at practice. The phone calls stop. The minutes shrink. The offers come in light. So now, Carrington finds herself on the Minnesota Lynx, a respected franchise, a contender, but not a team known for tolerating noise. In other words, welcome to basketball boot camp. You can almost hear the message ringing out from the Lynx front office. You've got talent, but we're not babysitting. It's a one-shot deal. Fit in or fade out. And let's not ignore the contrast that's fueling all this. On one side, you got Caitlin Clark, a media darling, yes, but also someone who consistently takes a high road. She gets fouled hard, says nothing, gets heckled, keeps it classy, gets poked in the eye, and doesn't retaliate. She's composed. She's focused. She's the embodiment of that golden era sportsmanship people love to romanticize. And like it or not, that makes her the measuring stick. So when Carrington acts like the anti-Clark, playing physical, doubling down on controversy, and refusing to apologize, it doesn't land as competitive. It lands as bitter, especially when her box score isn't doing her any favors. And here's where the story turns poetic. Because the very thing that gave Carrington the most attention, her aggression, her edge, her willingness to be the heel, is also the thing that got her shipped out. She became a headline. Yes, but not the kind that gets you endorsement deals. The kind that gets you traded. At a discount. With baggage. Meanwhile, Dallas Wings are already spinning the narrative. They're moving on, talking about culture fits and chemistry priorities. Reading between the lines, it's clear. Carrington was a problem they chose not to fix. They had options. They could have issued fines. Benched her. Let the drama cool. Instead, they pulled the trigger and sent her packing. That says more than any press release ever could. This trade isn't just a player swap. It's a warning shot to the rest of the league. To every young player coming up thinking they can go viral for the wrong reasons and still be untouchable. The message is loud and clear. Talent is not enough. If your brand becomes a liability, there's always a cheaper, quieter replacement waiting in the wings. Literally. And don't get it twisted. Carrington is talented. No one's denying that. She's fast. She's aggressive. She brings energy. But if you're not putting up consistent numbers, not lifting your team, not showing growth, then that energy starts to look like noise. And teams don't want noise. They want wins. So now we get to watch the next chapter. Will DJ Carrington rise from the ashes and prove everyone wrong? Or will she fade into the background? Another name on a long list of what-ifs? That's on her. Minnesota isn't going to coddle her. The media's already over the shock. And the fans? They've made up their minds for now. Redemption isn't going to come easy. It's going to take silence, sweat, and some seriously humble pie. And you know what? That might be the best thing for her. Because sometimes, the only way to grow is to get knocked off your pedestal and handed a clipboard. The league isn't going to wait around while you learn the lesson. But if you learn it fast enough, you might still have a shot at proving everyone wrong. For now, though, the trade stands as a lesson in karma. A reminder that bad behavior might trend for a day, but respect and consistency build legacies. And Caitlin Clark? She's not just building a legacy. She's changing an entire conversation with her composure, with her play, with her poise in the face of, well, pokes. So congrats to the Dallas Wings for winning this week's We're Done Here award. And to DJ Carrington, it's your move. The court's different now. The stakes are higher. The leash is shorter. DJ Carrington's move to Minnesota isn't just a trade. It's a transfer of tension, a low-key exile dressed up as a fresh start. And make no mistake, people around the league see it for what it is. Minnesota didn't just acquire a player. They inherited a media narrative, a pile of hot takes, and a human lightning rod. DJ might be flying under the radar for now, sitting on the bench while the Lynx focus on winning games. But that tension, it's still there, waiting, inside that locker room. You better believe there are eyes on her, veterans sizing her up, coaches waiting to see if she'll buy in or blow up. Because Minnesota isn't exactly a soft landing. It's a franchise with expectations. It's not the kind of place where you can cruise through practice and post cryptic tweets after games. If DJ wants a future in this league, this is a pivot point. The moment where you either shut down the noise and start showing up, or become a cautionary tale. And it's worth pausing to recognize how rare this kind of second chance even is in the WNBA. In a league with just 12 teams and limited roster spots, forgiveness isn't guaranteed. Reputations stick. When players flame out or cause friction, they don't get 10 lifelines. They get 1, maybe 2 if they're lucky. So for DJ to land on a contender, even in a reduced role, should be seen as an opportunity, not a punishment. But whether she sees it that way, that's still unclear. What is clear is how much this trade reveals about the politics of performance in professional sports. Because if DJ had been putting up 20 points a night, dominating defensively and delivering clutch performances, she might still be in Dallas. She might have survived the eye poke scandal, the interviews, the bad PR, but she wasn't. She was inconsistent. Flashes of brilliance, yes, but not enough to outweigh the chaos. And that's when the math gets simple for front offices. If the drama is bigger than production, the player goes. It's harsh, but it's the business. And it's that same cold calculus that's fueling whispers around the league now. Whispers about who's next, about what kind of behavior will or won't be tolerated in a league that's trying to grow, trying to evolve, trying to prove to the world that it belongs in the spotlight. Carrington became the poster child for what happens when that spotlight turns sour. A moment that should have been about competition turned into a referendum on character. And yes, some of the backlash was over the top. Some of it veered into targeted hate, ugly language, and personal attacks that had nothing to do with basketball. That part, not acceptable. But the core issue, that her actions during and after the Clark incident reflected poorly on the league, and that her response didn't match the moment, that part still stands. Because there's something especially frustrating about watching a talented player throw away goodwill like it's nothing. The WNBA has fought so hard to get attention, to get coverage, to earn every second of airtime. And then here comes Carrington, with a rare sliver of media focus shining on her, and she uses it to post memes and troll fans? It's not edgy, it's short-sighted. Meanwhile, on the court, the narrative is already moving on without her. Caitlin Clark keeps racking up stats, selling out arenas, breaking viewership records. She's not clapping back on Instagram. She's letting her game talk. And that contrast is doing Carrington no favors. Every time Clark brushes off a hard foul without flinching, she gains more respect. Every time DJ drops a cryptic subtweet, she loses some. The game is being played on two courts now, one physical, one reputational. And Carrington's losing both. Which brings us back to Minnesota. The Lynx took a calculated risk. They didn't bring in DJ to be a savior. They brought her in to fill a spot, provide depth, and maybe be molded into a system player. But the leash is short. The expectations are clear. And the tolerance for side drama? Non-existent. Internally, this trade sends a message across the entire league. A silent warning that no one is bigger than the brand. That the WNBA is done indulging players who treat bad press like free promo. That the culture, the chemistry, the locker room dynamic, those things matter more than a viral clip, more than a TikTok following, more than a soundbite. And for Carrington, the lesson is this. You can be the villain for a night, but unless you back it up with wins, you won't be the hero in anyone's story. You can see how even fans are shifting. A few months ago, some were defending Carrington, arguing that she brought toughness, that the game was getting too soft, that Clark needed to toughen up. But now, even some of those fans are going quiet. It's hard to argue just playing hard, when the stats don't back it, when the attitude doesn't shift, when the player gets traded down, not up, when her minutes drop, not rise. Because this trade wasn't just a move on the board, it was a demotion, no matter how it spun. Carrington isn't being built around. She's being reevaluated, repackaged, retested. It's humbling, and it should be, because being in the league isn't a right. It's a privilege, and being in the headlines doesn't mean you're winning. Now the question becomes, can she adapt? That's what everyone's watching for. Not just the fans, not just the media, but the other players too, because players talk. They know who's serious and who's not. They know who shows up and who coasts. If DJ walks into that Lynx locker room and acts like nothing's changed, she'll be gone before the All-Star break. But if she walks in, shuts her mouth, works harder than everyone else, and lets her game do the talking, she might just have a shot at redemption. But redemption is earned, not given. And this league is running out of patience for players who think they can tweet their way out of trouble. There's also the very real possibility that this trade marks the beginning of the end. That Carrington's name becomes one of those cautionary tales rookies hear in camp. Don't be the next DJ. That she's remembered more for the poke than the play, more for the memes than the minutes. Because the WNBA moves on fast. And once it decides you're not worth the headache, it's almost impossible to flip that narrative back. And maybe that's the real tragedy here, because buried beneath all the noise is a player who could be great, who has the raw tools, the athleticism, the spark. But if the spark keeps lighting fires instead of scoring buckets, nobody's sticking around to clean up the mess. As it stands now, Carrington has a slim window. A few months, maybe, a handful of games to prove she's more than the punchline she's become, that she's willing to grow, to take the hits, on and off the court, and still show up with something to contribute. But if she keeps playing the villain without a plot twist, this might be her final act. And you know what? That's what makes this drama so magnetic, because we've seen stories like this before. Players who fumble the bag, only to come back smarter, stronger, and more grounded. And we've seen the opposite. Players who thought the league needed them more than they needed the league, and quietly disappeared. Dijonai Carrington is standing on that edge now. And no matter how tough she acts, no matter how sharp her social media comebacks are, that edge is real. The next move? That's hers. The silence following Dijonai Carrington's trade is almost louder than the noise that preceded it. Gone are the cryptic tweets, the playful antagonism, the public jabs. Instead, there's a weird stillness. No fiery statements from her new team. No fanfare. No fresh start interview tour. Just quiet. And for someone who thrived in the chaos just weeks earlier, the sudden calm feels unnatural. Like the league hit mute on a player who was getting way too loud for her own good. That silence says everything. Because this isn't just a mid-season trade. It's a character checkpoint, a career reset, a test, not of talent, but of humility, of whether Carrington can sit in the discomfort she created and come out the other side better, wiser, and maybe, finally, focused. And while she adjusts to a colder locker room, a smaller role, and a fan base that isn't exactly rolling out a welcome mat, Caitlin Clark continues her ascent. That contrast? It's brutal. Clark is the one who took the hit, literally. Yet somehow she's walking away as the moral center of the league. Meanwhile, Carrington, the one who dished out, is now a league villain with limited minutes and a reputation in freefall. It's not just bad PR, it's a bad trajectory. Let's be real. The WNBA has never had this much cultural visibility. Every foul, every facial expression, every social media post is now part of a broader story. It's not just about the game anymore, it's about the narrative. And Carrington? She made herself a central character. She stepped into the spotlight, danced with the devil, and now the bills due. Minnesota's no fool. They know who they traded for. They didn't bring in DJ to become the face of the franchise. They brought her in to plug a hole, to provide defensive support, maybe bring energy off the bench. But you better believe this is a trial period. A quiet test to see whether Carrington can adapt or whether she'll become more dead weight than difference maker. Internally, players know what's up, no matter what coaches say in public. The locker room vibe never lies. And for a player coming in with baggage, that vibe is icy at best. Teammates don't forget drama. They might be polite, they might be professional, but they watch, they observe, they wait. And DJ's every move now is being logged silently in the minds of her new squad. Does she show up early to practice? Is she locking in on defense? Does she talk back to coaches? Does she sulk after a bad shift? Or does she keep her head down, grind, and make herself valuable without demanding attention? Because if she wants to fix this, that's the only way. She's got no leverage left, not in contracts, not in clout. The league gave her a second chance, but not a long leash. There won't be a third. That's not how this works. In a league where rosters are tiny, money is tight, and every slot counts. Drama is a luxury teams can't afford, especially not drama without upside. Right now, Carrington is upside potential, not reality. She hasn't proven she can carry a team or swing a playoff series. She hasn't even proven she can stay consistent across a full season. That matters, because in the WNBA, where veterans dominate and rookies fight tooth and nail to stay signed, potential is just another way of saying you're replaceable if this doesn't work. And that's the shadow now hanging over Carrington's name. Replaceable. That has to sting, especially when, not too long ago, she looked like a rising star. But rising stars don't let their off-court antics eclipse their production. They don't tweet through scandal. They don't double down when the spotlight turns harsh. They don't take for granted what this league gave them. And whether she wants to admit it or not, the league did give her something. An opportunity, a platform, a paycheck. But Carrington treated it like it would always be there, like she was untouchable, like her name would keep ringing whether she was winning or not. But the league doesn't care about vibes. It cares about results. Right now, Dijonai Carrington has two choices. Either she becomes a player her early supporters believed she could be, gritty, focused, with a little edge but a lot of substance, or she becomes a player other teams warn rookies about. You see that? Don't do that. Because here's the reality. Not all controversy is career-ending. Players have bounced back from worse. But they don't do it by pretending they're the victim. They don't do it by playing passive-aggressive on social media. They do it by putting their heads down and working, by letting their play speak louder than their press. Carrington hasn't had that moment yet. That turning point where she steps back and says, "Okay, I messed up. Time to fix it." Maybe that moment's coming. Maybe this trade was that wake-up call. But if she still sees herself as misunderstood instead of accountable, then the Minnesota stint is just a holding pattern before the inevitable cut. And fans? They've already moved on. That's what happens when you become more sideshow than star. You lose the narrative. 1 minute, everyone's talking about you. The next, they're only talking about what's next. Clark's next game, the next highlight, the next buzzer beater, the next rookie to watch. That's the thing about basketball. It never stops. And if you stop with it, you get left behind. Carrington is now a bench player on a serious team. She's not there to start fights. She's not there to build a brand. She's there to contribute. Quietly, consistently. Because in Minnesota, flashy only gets you so far. What they care about is whether you make the rotation better, whether you keep the energy up, whether you add something to culture or drain it. And for all the noise that followed her here, DJ's biggest task now is to prove she belongs here. Not because she's dramatic, not because she's famous for a foul, but because she plays the game the right way. If she figures that out, she might still write a redemption arc worth watching. But if she doesn't, the league moves on. Teams stop calling. Minutes dry up. Eventually, someone younger, quieter, and hungrier takes her place. And all that noise she made just echoes